This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning to all the participants. I welcome you all to the third day of 1 week online faculty development program on exploring data mining and machine learning applications organized by Department of Computer Science and Engineering, G. Pullareddy Engineering College, Kurnool. It is a great honor for me to introduce the resource person of today's session, Dr. J. Krishnaya, Associate Professor and HOD in Mechanical Engineering Department of Indian Institute of Information Technology, Design and Manufacturing, Kurnool. His core research interests are application of machine learning and deep learning for Industry 4.0. Previously, Sir has worked with BHEL as Senior Manager at Corporate Research and Development of BHEL, Hyderabad. Overall, he worked with BHEL Trichy and BHEL Corporation R&D units in various capacities for a total of 9 years. At BHEL, he has been working on developing solutions with applications of machine learning and deep learning for building cyber physical system of power plant with digital twins of cyber systems for modeling, controlling, and optimization. Before joining BHEL, he worked in various organizations during 2005 to 2010 and developed various AI and ML solutions. He has graduated in mechanical engineering from JNTU Anantapur. He has master's degrees and earned his doctoral degree in manufacturing systems engineering from IIT Kharagpur in 1998 and 2005 respectively. He has 8 international journal articles to his credit. Shah has presented papers in the proceedings of 22 national and international conferences. He has filed 12 patents, out of which 1 is granted and 11 are published. He has 2 design registrations and 4 copyrights registered in his account. With his expertise in the field of machine learning, his session on applications of unsupervised machine learning techniques will be of great help to the participants in improving their technical and research knowledge. With this, now I would like to request Dr. Krishnaya sir to take over the session. Hello, sir.
Santosh, Dr. Santosh,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
good morning. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, sir. You can go into full mode, sir. Full screen. The slideshow.
Hello.
You can go into the slideshow, sir.
Yes, sir. It is.
Hello.
Sir, it is visible, sir.
Hello.
Sir, it is visible, sir.
Hello. Just a minute. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Sir, it is visible, sir.
And Dr. Santosh,
Yes, sir. It is audible and
are you
visible,
able to
sir.
hear me?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hello, sir.
And Dr. Santosh, hello.
Sir, it is audible, sir. I am able to hear you, but I
But
think
I'm
you
not
are.
able to hear you. That's why, like, I was 1 minute.
Okay. Okay. You are audible, sir. It's fine.
Okay, okay.
Can it goes to the slides show, sir?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. But I should able to, I mean, get the feedback. Can you talk? Hello.
Hello, sir. Is it audible, sir?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now it is audible. Yes.
Okay, sir. It is visible and audible, sir.
Okay, sure, sure. Then I'll start that. Huh?
Yeah. Okay, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah. Just a minute. So, are you able to see my screen now? Yeah. Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir. It is visible.
Yeah. Okay. So, shall I proceed?
Yeah, yeah, sir. Sure.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I think this is third day of the FDP that we are going through. Before starting, first of all, let me thank the management of G. Pullareddy College of Engineering for inviting me this to deliver this particular lecture and talk on this. And I also thank Dr. Satish Santosh for inviting me and his department. So with this, many of us actually use these techniques, whether knowingly or unknowingly, in fact, in daily life as well. This unsupervised learning techniques or unsupervised machine learning techniques, particularly here. So before getting into the more details, I would like to just brief you. Yeah. Just ask few questions. Like in machine learning, what is mission and what is learning? Represent here. I think by now most of you would have gone through certain topics, because once you are attending this FDP means you have some affinity or some interest in this particular area, and I'm expecting you would have gone through certain aspects of it, like how the AI is divided into machine learning, ANN, and then deep learning kind of thing. So, I mean, however, I have some open questions still. Why the names? There are so many names. Though the techniques that we use, people do use interchangeably under different umbrellas, and however, there is some confusion in terms of like which techniques comes under machine learning, which techniques comes under AI or artificial intelligence, or which techniques comes under deep learning and things like that. And the people who ever get introduced to this particular area, sometimes I have seen on the internet, even regression analysis also introduced as a deep learning technique. I wonder sometimes like how so much, vagueness in the topics. The deep learning, I think there's a different animal altogether, and it has to be dealt with very carefully. Of course, if it is dealt with carefully, and the amount of performance that it gives is enormous, and that's why you would have seen so many applications in the field of. You can say, you can take any field. It could be just monitoring of parking area to controlling the equipment that are being used in the aeroplanes. Everything now one or other way deep learning is being applied. So actually, if you actually dig deep into the deep learning techniques, there is some unsupervised learning component also in it. Though we are not going into much details about that in this particular talk, but maybe at some point in time in the discussion we will touch those points as well. So here the question is, if missions, that is computers, are learning in machine learning, then which ones are learning in AI or deep learning, etc. Right? So the machine learning, it is obvious that okay, missions in this particular context, missions means computers, and they learn based on whatever algorithm we give, and then derive some information out of some vague data. So if you see that, and AI also does same thing, deep learning also does same thing. So why we should call machine learning only as a machine learning? Okay, I think there is, over a period of time, there was some field, during the evolution of the field, the names that occurred based on their interest or their naming, like for example, we name something and somebody else will name something else. But the it may be same thing. For example, if you take let's say neem tree, in Telugu we called Vepa, and in English we called neem, and in Hindi something else, right? So like this, maybe people would have come up with different names. That's what I feel. There is no much differences, of course. Some concepts we need to distinguish from other concepts, particularly if it comes to deep learning, it is different. But AI, ML, these could be maybe interchangeable names, and neural network could be one of the algorithms or set of algorithms in machine learning or AI. So that's how my distinction here. And when it comes, why not all of them called as a data-driven or just learning systems is another proposal. Anyway, there could be many resistances for these kind of things. But if you want to give an overall name, maybe data-driven or learning system could be one name who can go ahead. So here in this particular talk, our main aim is to understand the unsupervised learning and then its applications into this various domains. So here, most of you are aware about supervised learning, semi-supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning. So here, in the supervised learning is nothing but when we have X and Y. Basically here X is in the machine learning techniques or in the even this area of any of the machine learning techniques or AI techniques, NN techniques, we consider X as an independent variable that are nothing but attributes that define any working of a system, and Y is the outcome of that particular system. That is a dependent variable, X and Y. Let us take this as a standard X and Y, and then move ahead to understand the concepts. So when we have X defined and Y defined, then we call, with the learning process that we go through, we call as a supervised learning. And when X only defined and the Y is not defined, then to understand that data and then derive something out of it, we call that as a unsupervised learning. So in unsupervised learning, data sets are provided without label, that is without Ys. A model learns useful property of the structure of the data variables only, and it doesn't cross-check what is, how the Y is influencing that, because there is no Y at all in this particular case. Okay, and the last one is the reinforcement learning. Here, just an example I can give you. Like as a kid, we may not be knowing what is hot and what is not hot. Let us say we are sitting for having food, and then we touch certain utensils without knowing. Maybe if it is hot, then it burns our hand. Then onwards, we'll be very careful to touch those kind of utensils. Maybe you'll have certain properties to see whether it is hot or not. But prior to that, you may not be knowing how to distinguish hot utensils and normal utensils. But after once it is given a punishment to you by just burning when you touch it, then onwards you'll be knowing how the hot utensils will be behaving. At least maybe it is radiating some heat. So before actually touching, you may be just taking your hand near to the utensils and then taking, sensing whether it's it is going to burn your hand or not when you touch it. Okay, so anyway, we are not much spending time on the reinforcement learning, but on unsupervised learning, we will see how the things will be. So you see the mathematical differences of the unsupervised learning and supervised learning. That's what I was explaining a little bit in the previous slide. Like sorry. But that's what I was explaining. In the unsupervised learning generally involves several examples of random vector x and attempting to learn probability distribution are some interesting property of that particular distribution. So here, as I said, there is no y involved in unsupervised learning. There is only x, but x alone, how do you consider? Okay, there could be varieties of properties you should be able to distinguish. Maybe just probability distribution in one case, and or otherwise maybe the Euclidean distance of x with respect to one particular origin, or with respect to maybe centroid of particular thing, or maybe one particular reference point, the x, the Euclidean distance or Manhattan distance, or many distances are there through which we can distinguish how the particular x attributes are having, or how particular incident is different from the other incident we can identify. So in supervised learning, as I said, model observes several examples of variable x, and each x will have some corresponding y, and then once the system is learned, that particular combination x and then corresponding y, then when you give x to the system, then it will predict what will be the y. So the y could be a regression value or classification value or class value. So regression values are generally like continuous value. It could be anything, I mean, depending on what problem you are handling. So if you are predicting temperature, maybe if the system need to be operated between 100 to 200 degrees centigrade, then the outcome of that particular thing could be varying from 100 to 200, or maybe this side, that side, 10%, making it like 90 degrees to 220 degrees kind of range to predict. Whereas classification, like a classification or class prediction, you may be having 2 classes or 3 classes or 5 classes, 10 classes, depending on what problem you are handling. Let us say if you are handling a particular mechanical behavior problem, where based on the fault that is there in the system, its sound could be different, and that gives rise to certain features in the acoustics of that particular sound, and then we can classify that with the different classes. Maybe you have different faults, and then different sounds are associated, then you can classify them within the 10 classes. Similarly, the problems that are categorized under supervised learning basically when you have a classification and regression. But when you have to estimate density or probability density, or when you want to cluster different items or components or behaviors or features, then or otherwise dimensionality reduction, like for example PCA, principal component analysis. Principal component analysis, one of the technique, unsupervised learning technique that reduces the dimensionality from a very huge number to a handleable few numbers. Similarly, self-organizing map also a clustering technique. It's a clustering technique as well as dimensionality reduction technique. Both ways it works. And of course, if you want to convert the self-organizing map into semi-supervised learning, like which we did not talk about in the previous slide, there we have a second type learning techniques, that is semi-supervised learning, where the technique you can first make a unsupervised learning process, and then you can label them and then use for training the neural networks for predicting it. So it becomes partly supervised and partly unsupervised, and that's why it is semi-supervised. Okay, there could be different definitions for semi-supervised learning, but this is what we consider how to use that. So here when we see unsupervised learning technique, there are many classification divisions or techniques under this particular thing. So let us see how we have like major unsupervised learning methods. If you see clustering techniques, under that we have k-means clustering, k-nearest neighborhood clustering, association rule technique, hierarchical clustering, self-organizing map, half-built neural networks, recurrent neural networks, autoencoder. I said in the previous slides that even deep learning techniques are having unsupervised learning features. That's what this both recurrent neural networks and autoencoder. In fact, I mentioned only autoencoder here, but the CNN also has that feature of basically learning. Unsupervised learning, because we see that's what the the advantage of deep learning techniques that we have, where we don't have to say that these features, this xy leads to this, this x vector leads to this particular y, right? Of course, actually, if you further dig through that concept, actually this deep learning also leads to some kind of semi-supervised learning, because part of it actually is kind of unsupervised learning, but once the features are found through CNN, then those features are mapped to some cluster, some classes. So where that becomes semi-supervised learning technique. So, and in the case of recurrent neural networks and autoencoder, these are the features. Maybe we'll touch that in later slides if time permits. But otherwise, let me complete here itself. Maybe we may not touch that again. So in the recurrent neural networks, the features we have. Can I draw here something? Okay, here in the recurrent neural networks, generally, I mean, I draw just a representative network where we have X and we have Y and we have the context inputs. This is the actually a delayed input. Delayed in sense it could be 1 time delay or 2 time delay or 3 time delay, but here in this case I am representing with 1 time delay, that is z minus 1. Z to the power of minus 1 is generally indication of, like, let us say here this is t plus 1, that is x plus 1 here also, but whereas here this is t, that is 1 time period previous. So when this is a simple architecture for recurrent neural networks where the dependency, it is not just x alone, but its previous behavior also will be influencing the future behavior. So this is what actually leads to a dynamic outcome altogether. Hello. Yes, Dr. Santosh.
Nothing, sir. You can continue. Somebody has.
Okay, right. Okay, right. So here, this dynamic behavior is what actually gives us. I mean, this leads to a dynamic behavior, and that's what actually in the learning also. The neural net, I mean, recurrent neural network gets the learning that we have not shown to it. Here, I'll try to put some example, but immediately I don't have it here. But anyway, so this is what I mean here in the sense. Okay, let me draw something like this. The behaviors that actually we have not trained specially, all also got captured into the learning, and then it behaves like this. I mean, this is a chaotic map. So where when I train the recurrent neural network, where I have not given this feature, but when I plot it and run it for different combinations of this x and the control parameters, then it was able to reveal this particular behavior and the dynamics. Okay, this right now it appears vague even to me when I'm explaining to you, because it is completely different area for you people. So anyway, so the idea is recurrent neural network has the feature of learning that is not actually shown to it to learn. So that's what I want to emphasize here. Similarly, off-field neural network, if you take, I think most of you would have understood this salesperson TSP, traveling salesperson, right? So where salesman problem, where he has to visit different cities and where there is no actual output which represents as a y, but only we know the total distance that need to be covered by the salesman should be the minimum. So this is what this is what the problem was earlier, and then it in fact it needs to be actually calculated if the number of cities, as number of cities increases, the solutions that are possible also exponentially increases. So to handle this problem, people have used the off-field neural network, where the point of what I was mentioning in the previous slide, the estimation or the distance kind of estimation, here density estimation I put, but similarly the distance estimation or overall the outcome estimation is what comes under that particular off-field neural networks. And similarly autoencoder will touch at the end sometime. Okay, so let's with this let's move on to next slide. So this is what actually we were talking about in unsupervised learning, clustering organization of unstable data into similarity groups called clusters. So here at the bottom you see all are potatoes only, but based on its surface color or texture color, there are different potatoes possible, but we don't know how many are there in what color. But if you can separate them out and then put into kind of this cluster, then we know, okay, these are all comes under this particular color potatoes, and this is normal potatoes, and this is little off-white potato and things like that. Okay, of course here there are different colors altogether. Anyway, we have sweet potato also here, but we have not touched here. So that is the point. Putting similar behavioral things together, or a cluster is a collection of data items which are similar between them and dissimilar to the data in the other cluster. Here in terms of only color we are seeing, which is a one dimension only, but if you see in reality, the things are whatever number of x attributes you have, its dimensionality is that much. If you have 10 attributes of one particular item to represent, then it means you have 10-dimensional data to represent it. So which means we cannot just put together based on one particular x attribute. We have to consider all 10 attributes and then and then cluster them. Right? So by the way, here I would like to ask you one question. What is the classification and what is clustering? Of course, I should have asked this question at the beginning, but maybe at least I should ask you now. Any idea? You can just respond through your chart. What is classification and what is clustering? Anyone? Hello. What is the classification and what is clustering? Sorry. Yeah. Oh, grouping the items. Okay, I'm getting some here. Grouping items is clustering. Okay. In classification, labels will be already there, but in clustering, no previous defined class labels. Grouping some kinds of items from a group of different items is clustering. Okay. Yeah, that is the point. I mean, it's simple. Clustering is, for clustering process, you don't have label the data. Means we don't know a prior that okay, this particular X set is belongs to this particular class. But after learning, we will be having classes. But whereas in classification, uh, during training, we will be having both X and Y things, that is labels and as well as X together to be able to learn. And after that, any X comes, we can label, I mean, we can easily classify them. Whereas in clustering techniques, before learning, we don't have any labels, but after learning, we'll be having labels. And then when new case comes, we can cluster, I mean, we can make to which cluster it is belongs to. Okay, here there are some more things. There are two types of clustering: C-means clustering and K-means clustering. Okay, I mean, are there only two types of clustering? Clustering. If C5 is clustering, then C means okay. Yes. Yeah. Clustering is the process for bringing the same type of things into one group, and the classification is the predefined things. Yes. Yeah. So ND K means clustering, or C means clustering. Basically, K means or C means. It is basically C or K indicates number of clusters that we have to have. So here, in fact, that is one of the limitation of K-means clustering also, where you have to define number of clusters up prior. Okay, so suppose let us say you have 10 different classes and you have defined K as a 3, then you are forced to classify other class things also into this particular class. I mean, within the 3 classes, you have to distribute all the 10 classes, which is a big bottleneck in the K-means clustering. So how people have avoided that, and is there any techniques that takes care of that? Also, we have to see. Do you people aware of this? I mean, is there any technique that handles the difficulty of giving K a prior, or without giving K a prior, can we cluster things? Okay. Anyway, we will see in our class. I mean, in this particular talk about it. Okay. Here, very simple question. Okay, Mr. Raghuram has given partitioning method is the one method that takes care of this problem. Okay, that is kind of, I mean, within the say means you have additional what you can say, maybe a modified version of k-means clustering. I am talking about completely different clustering technique. Okay, let's see on your screen. If you see, there are two clusters. So obviously, I mean, all of you will know which is best cluster here, isn't it? Or is there any ambiguity? I don't think there is any ambiguity in finding better cluster among these two. Yes or no? At least two people, if you say yes, and which one is the better cluster, then we will move on. Yes. Yeah, first one is the better cluster, naturally. So why is, when we are dividing here, if you see in the second cluster, when we are dividing, the cluster border is cutting through the different classes. Maybe if you see our states, how the borders are made, if you see, that could be a bad clustering technique they would have used at that time, because at the borders in many states we have seen either people of, I mean, for example, if you take Tamil Nadu has some part of Telugu speaking areas into Tamil Nadu, and in Andhra we have some areas where Tamil speaking people are more, like that. So that is a bad cluster. Like it represents, the second one represents this what state division kind of thing. Whereas the first one is clear cut demarcation of the clusters, where it is clearly different. So general definition of cluster or better cluster is that same group, the radius of same group should be minimum enough, and the distance between the different groups should be maximum enough. This is the definition of the cluster. Whatever may be the technique, but it is the radius of the cluster should be small enough, and the distance between two clusters should be maximum enough, so that there is no overlap of two different kinds into, I mean, there should not be overlap of two different kinds. Yeah, Ravi, yes, you have responded little late. However, you're right. Classification means supervised learning, and clustering means unsupervised learning. This is in simple, definitely this is what it is. Classification is supervised learning, where you have labels prior, and so that's why it leads to supervised learning. And then when you're using for classification, I mean, that becomes classification. Whereas in the clustering, it's unsupervised learning, and it leads to clusters. In a way, clusters may lead to classes. I mean, if you want label, like for example, at one point in time, you don't have labels. First, you make labels out of by using unsupervised learning, and then onwards you can use those labels for supervised learning. So each learning methods are having its own advantages and disadvantages, which of course on itself like different class itself, maybe we have to take separately, right? So here, let us see, if you see the applications wise of supervised learning, many of you would have noticed the techniques, or even in the Amazon, if you buy certain book, it will also give you, okay, when you whoever bought this particular book also bought book 2, or this kind of thing. Or otherwise, if you buy certain electronic component, they will also say, okay, along this component there people have bought this particular electronic gadget. So like that, the association they bring into things. Okay. So here, did I miss something? Association rules to cover? Yeah. Okay. Here we have this. So we'll see that. So if you see, I mean, let us go one by one, the applications wise, news sections. So based on the different kinds of topics that covered by those news, the Google News separates them out automatically. Like if a certain news is covering same topic, then it will put together, or otherwise maybe in the next level it may put. So here maybe if you further actually see it, it may also actually leads to hierarchical clustering as well, right? Hierarchical clustering, which means at a very high level there could be one level of clusters, and as you move on deeper and deeper, there could be further division of cluster of things. Like for example, just to give an example here, if you see Amazon, they will be having maybe millions of different items, but at the top level they say, okay, electronics item, domestic items, and home appliances, and fashion items, and things like that. But once you go further, like let us say if you go into fashion items, then there could be kids items, there could be ladies items, there could be men items, there could be uh, many other ethnic items, there could be maybe functions related ethnic items. I mean, those kind of definition it will give you. Again, you can dig through further and reach that. I mean, ladies item, within the ladies item there could be sarees, there could be I mean churidars, there could be multiple things, further divisions. So like that, the hierarchical way of dividing things in a clustering way, I mean dividing as a clusters, has I mean that kind of applications are also available, because clustering those many millions of items manually is a difficult process altogether. Maybe if multiple people are doing, still there could be problem. Okay, so okay, on the Amazon items, clustering may be easier, but when it comes to news clustering, it could be a problematic thing, isn't it? Like daily, if millions of pages are updated with the news items, and if we want to put those many people to identify which item comes under what cluster, then it is a Herculean task. Similarly, computer vision. So computer vision also, to large extent, it is unsupervised learning way only it learns visual perception tasks and object recognition related, because we don't know what attributes leads to what classes. So here in the computer, I mean, till now we have seen, we have X, but we don't have Y, right? X attributes are there, but Y parameters are not there in the unsupervised learning. But in the case of computer vision, it is little different. Most of the times we may be having Y, that is labels may be available, but the X, that is attributes, may not be available. X means what are the different features that leads to recognizing particular object as a let us say dog, or particular object as a cat, or particular object as an apple, like that. I mean, it is very difficult to represent all X attributes. So here this problem is what being handled by the CNN, that is deep learning techniques, or particularly CNN is one of the techniques that actually finds the attributes, that is X, to detect or associate the Ys or clusters. So most of the times why I'm saying most of the time is in sense, even in computer vision problems also, the classes are, the outcomes are not predefined. I mean, certain times, okay, it is predefined. Like for example, if you take X-ray of a COVID patient, maybe X-ray of non-COVID patients, it could be easily distinguishable as a human. But if it is given to a computer, how it will be distinguished is what there are no particular X attributes that clearly we can identify from the this X-ray image or CT scan image. So that's what in the medical domain also we have applications using unsupervised learning. That's what I was mentioning, like where it will give unsupervised learning gives essential features that can be extracted from the image itself. And another important thing that unsupervised learning will be useful in the medical image or computer vision is segmentation. Segmentation in sense distinguishing two different items in a picture. So if multiple items or components or objects are there in the image, then how do you distinguish is possible using segmentation. Of course, this segmentation techniques, I mean, customers detecting customer behavior also one can use, where or otherwise the anomaly detection in the equipment also we can use. So for example, as I mentioned in the previous, let us say in the mechanical equipment, you have different sounds for different faults that are there in there. Like you would have noticed, most of you would have noticed in your vehicle, either it is two-wheeler or four-wheeler, based on whatever problem that you have, its sound that, I mean, whenever it starts, the sound it produces will be different for different problems. That I think, irrespective of whether you are a mechanical engineer or not, you will know, okay, this sound means it leads to particular problem, or if some sound leads to maybe gear problem, some sound leads to maybe the filter is not properly filtering the air, or if it is some particular other sound, then you may know it is definitely for definitely due to the silencer loose, something like that. I mean, irrespective of whether you are mechanical engineer or automobile engineer, or even whether you are a mechanic, without knowing much deeper understanding, you can distinguish. So that is anomaly detection also possible in unsupervised learning methods, where this data could be associated for different problems based on using these particular techniques. So in fact, we had like when I was with the BHEL earlier, we had actually built a prototype model for detecting gear problems in the pulverizers. Of course, we have not implemented, that is a different thing, but we had prototyped the problem, distinguishing the noise based on noise and certain vibrations together. So combining different features, it could be vibrations, or it could be the noise or sound that are generated by it. So similarly, as I said, the segmentation we can also do for the customer behavior. Like if you are a credit card user, then what if you see, if you access your credit card web portal, then they would have given like what is the spend. They would give you spend analysis, right? And also they will give you kind of promos. Okay, if you use if you buy certain things, so you may your numbers in sense the whatever points you may gain so much and things like that. So those are promos. On what basis the promos will be coming up, that we will little bit examine. We had done in earlier I had done some problem solving for this particular case, that also we'll see. And last one, of course, which in fact we started with this itself, recommendation engines, where nowadays either you go to YouTube or Amazon, or maybe Netflix, or maybe Amazon Prime, or wherever you go, the recommendation engines are there. The recommendation engines are nothing but based on your current purchase or the past purchase. It will suggest you, okay, you may be interested on this particular item also, or you'd like to watch this particular movie based on your past behavior, past views. We have analyzed to say that you may be interested to watch this particular movie, or this particular web series, or this particular item, news item, and things like that. All these are basically kind of after understanding the user behavior based on its past behavior, all this comes into. So after having gone through so many applications, maybe you will have doubt, okay, how do you parameterize all these problems? How do you find X for these problems? So most of the problems are very difficult to find what is X. Of course, Y is more or less fixed. Yeah, somebody has messaged here. Can you give an application example where have provided in industry? Yeah, we will see. We have in fact few examples, but of course I may not able to share all of them today itself, but maybe some other time also. But today we have one example. all these whatever applications I am listing down, they are based on the AI. Okay, here what I have done earlier is the customer segmentation is one area which I have done, and the second one is the anomaly detection in the mechanical equipment. This is also done, and the computer vision related. It's not exactly computer vision what I have done, but ICR, that is handwritten character recognition, where we have also implemented the character recognition related and also logo detection related. Logo recognition, like it's not detection but recognition. If let us say Tribati DM Kurnool logo is given, then it should say, based on just this particular image, it should say whether it belongs to, I mean, to which institute it belongs to, or which organization it belongs to. It has to give. That is the application we had built. Of course, it was in 2006 for one particular company where I was working. So those are the kind of, again, there it is a multi-layer unsupervised technique only there also. So where just a minute. Sorry, I was on other call, some important call, so I could not stop that. Sorry for that. So anyway, So these are the different problems that, of course, what is time I have further? Okay, I have another 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Okay. So these are the problems. I mean, whatever to the extent possible, whatever I have done, only I have given more details. But these are the other applications. Other than that, what I have done, other applications are also given here. Right? I think that answers your question, Praveen. Sorry. Right? So let's move on to yeah. So one technique, I mean, as I mentioned in the list of different techniques, if you see arbitrary, I mean, this k-means clustering, it is very simple compared to any techniques that we have under machine learning. This you can say kind of allowable for machine learning techniques. K-means clustering is a kind of allowable program for machine learning techniques, which is very simple, where you'll be choosing k objects from the data, and then you will be finding this centroid of the each objects. So here, based on the mean value of that particular thing, so once the total data is grouped as k different objects, then within each object, the cluster is considered to be similar based on the mean value of the object of the cluster itself, which means for that particular cluster, we'll be finding out the mean value, and then moving on to updating. Like, for example, update the cluster means that is calculate the mean value of the object for each cluster and then update it, and then repeat with the second step onwards till you have achieved where the radius of radius of the cluster is small enough, each cluster, in fact, not just one cluster, and the distance between different clusters are large enough. So these are the, I mean, very simple algorithm comparatively. So when it is applied for handwritten character recognition, this is what the outcome we see. Just a minute. So here, just I would like to take you through the code that is associated with this as well. This is basically applied for handwritten character recognition or digits, which is generally now has become a standard for actually problem solving in the you can say in the deep learning area, of course. So here we're able to see this.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can you
Yeah.
can you zoom a little
so,
bit?
Yeah, I'll zoom it. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is basically k-means under sklearn cluster techniques. this API is imported, and then here in this particular case, the data. Let me run one by one. So here, the data and labels, when we run it, so if you see labels, we have 0 to 9. In fact, this why this 8 is there, we have to see, but it is actually 0 to 9. So there are certain data sets. So if you want to see what is the data set size, then if you can see this with shape. I'm assuming that most of you are aware of Python programming, because again getting details of Python programming is here is difficult. So here if you see, there are 64 x means the features of the object, or it could be just it is maybe 8 by 8, right? Just 8 by 8. If you see, these are, it's a picture of 8 by 8, 8 pixel by 8 pixel information to represent digit. So there are 1797 1797 rows are there. I mean, different samples we have. So how many samples related to which particular class? I mean, we are not yet seen in the data. Of course, actually, we may be having all that information beforehand, but here in this particular case, I'm just going through, assuming that all these zeros 0 to 9 are distributed equally. It could be different, but let us not worry as of now about those points. So here, once the data and labels we see, let's see what is the space. I mean, how many n samples? All these we have seen. Shape is we have seen, and then unique labels. Yeah, this. Let us see this. How many unique labels we have? So we have 0 to 9 labels, unique labels we have, and that's what even size also I was mentioning. Size is nothing but, so each one is I mean basically label size is 10. Total 10 labels are there, right? This is what 10 digit, I mean 10 digits, and then these many feature, and this features is basically 64. That's what I mentioned here. All that. Now we have, if you see, there are 10 digits, samples 1797 and features 64. We have that those many, and then when we want to use reduce or use directly, that is I mean up to us. But in this particular example, they have taken to reduce the dimensions using PCA. Of course, I mentioned PCA also one of the techniques under unsupervised learning for dimension reduction process. Though we are not getting into the details of PCA, but okay, PCA, when we apply, we have reduced dimensions of the PCA. We can see here. So if you see shape of that, again we will know like how much reduction it has happened. So in fact, it has reduced to 2, I mean features. From 64 features, it has reduced to 2 features. So, and then when we apply this k-means clustering using this particular call, this we know like k-means clustering is imported from cluster, and the algorithm whatever we have previously seen to be similar thing, and then if you actually run it, you'll be having I mean, we have made the object ready for learning, and then when we fit this, so we'll be getting the k-means fit to this particular things. So further, if you want to predict any of the x, okay, first we have to get the different data, and then if we want to predict the what x is belongs to what class, this is what we have to predict, where we are using k-means object to predict whatever the model we are using to predict the x and y together, and then once we see here z, we'll be having. So again, let us see what is the shape of z. So there are these many values we have, right? So if you plot this, okay, this sound good. Sorry. I think we missed something here. Yeah. So this is what the final output. So how do we interpret this? Let's see through the program, because yeah. So here, of course, we should have given the labels for, I mean, which colors indicates or which cluster indicates what label and all that. But if you see cluster, there are a very thin difference between two clusters. So with this, I mean, we will know that, okay, this seems to be not good cluster as such, but of course, somehow it is, it has distinguished different labels based on its features, that whatever, like 8 by 8, that is 64 different features. It's nothing but different features, nothing but what is maybe a black and white picture of label, black and white picture of handwritten character and digit, right? So that's what I mean, when it is I mean, when it is applied k-means clustering with respect after PCA reduced data, when you cluster, this is what happens. So we got 2 dimensions, just because when we want to represent as a plot, maybe we should have only 2 dimensions. That's why based on PCA, principal component, the first principal component and second principal component only are taken to actually visualize the outcome of the classification or clustering. So that's what we are seeing here, right? So any questions here? Any question here? Yeah, here at the bottom, I mean, I have given a reference where this particular problem is defined more detailedly. Can you tell any classification related issue in real time? Are you talking about the classification or clustering? And when it comes to real time, and when you say real time, what do you mean by real time? Or is it okay, classification classification in real time? You want to see what will be the problems. The classification, yeah. When you say classification, we assume that labels are already available and then X features are already available. So the problem, I mean, when the model is ready, the model is specific to one particular range of X attributes that you have sampled. Suppose if the X variables, X attributes that you are trying to predict in real time are new case, if it is a different range, then the classification may not be correctly doing it. So that is the general problem. Otherwise, once you have a model, then in the real time also you should be able to do, because the number of attributes, even number of attributes are high. Of course, at what frequency you want to classify is also one of the things we have to keep in mind. But with the current available computational facility, we should be able to handle in real time almost. So here, when you say real time, the real time may be varying from one case to other case. Suppose if the problem that is there in the aeroplane, the real time is maybe fraction of seconds. Whereas on Amazon, if you are clustering or classifying something based on the customer that he is spending time on the portal, the real time could be different. Like where it may range 1 minute to half an hour. It depends. Like based on his overall spend, he may take more time. And similarly, when it comes to buying something in a supermarket, maybe he's spending more time, or maybe if he's related to clothes, particularly like during the wedding season, then maybe people may spend almost a total day to actually select. So in real time, at that time, like how do you suggest, or how do you recommend different things uh, is basically from case to case it will be changing. Of course, this is possible, and these are the, this is one problem where in the classification we may get into, where the X range that are trained for particular case may not be same for the new case that is coming forward. Okay. In clustering, if an item has two types of group behavior, how is 1 minute, there is overlap here, just a minute. How it is going to group such item? Yeah, it's a good question, Srilata madam. So basically there could be, if it is complete identical, it is something like on the border for both, then it is difficult to classify them or cluster them. But at least some difference would be there. If there is no difference, and from both cluster the distance is exactly same, then we have to take a call to which it has to be depending on maybe at that time, if let us say we have 64 different attributes, then there could be certain attributes which are strong affinity towards one particular cluster, and other attributes may be having strong attributes toward strong affinity towards next cluster. So based on that, maybe we should have a program written in such a way that if these attributes are high, then this belongs to, or if any tie comes between two clusters, then check what is the values, or what is the difference in these two. I mean, let us say x1 to x10, what is the difference between these two clusters? Based on that, we can take a call to which cluster we have to send this new item that has come into. So that is one way I think we should able to handle. But otherwise, I mean, it is a border case. Sometimes even if there is a tie at that point also, there could be, I mean, there should be some other way of handling it. Like for example, maybe in MCET ranking, JEE rankings, if you see, we will have something like that, right? So I mean, is there any other question? Is there any technique to reduce number of features in classification, like PCA algorithm in unsupervised learning approach? Yes. That's what I was mentioning. Self-organizing map is one technique where we can use for reducing the number of features. Okay, and that is the one. Of course, PCA also one of the unsupervised learning technique I mentioned. Of course, I did not list in my list of unsupervised learning techniques, but PCA is also one of the unsupervised learning technique, and even independent component analysis also you would have heard, right? That is also one of the unsupervised learning technique, where we don't know what is the source of the data. Those kind of things. The independent component analysis is another technique that is possible to use in the place of PCA sometimes. Yeah. What do you mean by Srilataji? Like you want to make two clusters and merge them into one group? Is it what you are saying? No, we have already existing two clusters, right? Because of one item, we need not merge into one group, because it may lose its distinction or uniqueness. Later, it may lead to some other problem, right? Though if you see here in the clusters, let us say this represents 0. I mean, I'm not sure whether it represents 0, and this represents to 9. Then if you, because the features are very similar, 9 and 10, because of border maybe having, okay, I think this would be one of the case where you have more border cases. If you match them, we cannot make that way, right? I mean, if 9 is 9 and 0 is 0, that's it. It is difficult to say 9 and 0 are same. Of course, if it is not that kind of case, it may be easy. But even in medical case also, it is similar. I mean, you cannot have a common cough and COVID as the same symptom, though the feature is same, like cough and sneezing nose. Maybe they are in both cases, but we cannot make them same. It may be having a lungs problem at the higher level, but when you want to distinguish between these two, then you have to say, okay, this is COVID case and this is common cold. So that distinction we should have. Otherwise, there will be more number of COVID cases than otherwise, right? So distinction is required. Limitations. First limitations, this I mentioned already. Like we have a number of yes.
Krishna sir, hello sir.
Yes, please, yeah.
Hello sir.
Yes, please. Please tell me, Dr. Santosh.
Yeah, sir. Actually, the session is until 11:30, sir. If you want, you can continue. Otherwise,
Okay.
we'll take some questions.
Okay. I'll take questions. I mean, I have few slides to. Okay, I thought association rule and all that. Okay, we'll go with the questions. No problem.
Yeah. Okay. So, participants, if you have any questions, yeah. I think they have already asked the questions in the chat box, sir.
Yeah. I've answered most of them. Whatever questions were there in the chat box, I have answered most of them.
Yes, sir. Yes.
If any questions are there.
Yes. If any other questions, please let us know. Otherwise, we'll conclude the session.
Okay. Okay.
Suresh, sir?
Yes, sir.
Can I conclude it?
Yes, sir. So, I sincerely thank Dr. J. Krishnaiah, sir, for readily accepting our invitation to deliver the things on applications of unsupervised machine learning techniques. Thank you so much, sir, for being the resource person for this session. The content which you delivered was really helpful. So you have given a clear understanding regarding the various learning models and what is the difference between unsupervised and supervised learning, and the things which you explained regarding the various methods of major unsupervised learning are really informative, and even the clustering and applications of unsupervised learning are very clear. So with your vast experience, you really enriched our knowledge, sir. Thank you for your presence and delivering the contents. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Suresh, and thank you very much, Dr. Santosh, for inviting me this particular session. And if the participants have any questions, they can always reach out to me. Like, okay, I thought, I mean, for 2 hours I should have enough content. That's why I mean there are more, but anyway, I could only cover half of them. So they can reach out on this email ID anytime.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So thank you, participants, for joining the session. The next session will be continued tomorrow at 10 a.m. Thank you.